The year is 2011. The Xbox 360 has been flourishing for half a decade and is now joined by its literally identical counterpart, the PlayStation 3. Up to the month of November, we saw the release of a ludicrously huge number of awesome games such as Mass Effect 2, Dark Souls, Deus Ex Human Revolution, LA Noire, Bastion, Rage, Driver San Francisco, Shadows of the Damned, Little Big Planet 2, Rayman Origins, and many more. The 3DS had settled in the industry's stomach like a Taco Bell Fiesta salad, and we were ready for Bethesda to make their next move. And then this trailer came out. Following a frankly disgusting amount of memes and fanboyism, every gamer in the world calmed down and patiently waited to be engulfed by the milestone tidal wave of 11-11-11, from which the industry would never recover. By the time of Skyrim's release, Bethesda had already implanted itself firmly in the culture of gaming with the infectious success of Oblivion and Fallout 3. Gamers expected the world, and Bethesda gave gamers Skyrim. It depends on who you ask whether the game revolutionized the very concept of Western RPGs, or if it damaged the genre beyond repair. But no matter who you consult, there is no doubt in anyone's mind that Skyrim drastically altered the world of Western role-playing games, if not all video games. After the financial success following the release of Fallout 3 in 2008, Bethesda scrounged up all the profits gained from the game's sales, and with it hired 5 new voice actors. And with that, development on the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim began. From the beginning of the development cycle, Bethesda's first and foremost concern with the Elder Scrolls V was putting gigantic badass dragons into the game. After they'd gotten that worked out, all the other stuff just sort of fell into place. I don't think it's any exaggeration to say that before release, dragons were one of the strongest appeals of the game. I specifically remember playing Oblivion in the late 2000s and being disappointed at the lack of gigantic badass dragons in what was unmistakably a gigantic badass fantasy world. Cyrodiil was inhabited by rats, minotaurs, skeletons, even unicorns. So where are the dragons, Todd? If you wanted to laugh your ass off, you could have just tried to mod them in, but mods back then were terrible, so why would you ever do that? Holy shit, dragons were in Redguard though. Well, by dragons I mean a dragon, and by Redguard I mean the Elder Scrolls game we don't talk about. Luckily, Bethesda finally realized after developing like 10 cocking Elder Scrolls games that dragons are really cool, and decided to start making this awesome Nordic-themed world specifically designed to look cool with dragons flying all over it. Skyrim came out at a time in gaming when the industry was completely obsessed with everything being
dark and gritty and realistic.
And Skyrim was inevitably affected by this trend to the point where you could even call it the ultimate example of this aesthetic in gaming. This world design was a huge departure from the eyeball-bleedingly colorful bloomfest that was Oblivion. A warm, vibrant palette of greens and yellows was traded in for Skyrim's trademark muddy grays and other shades of gray. Even the early concept art and screenshots depicted a very monochrome, gloomy-looking world. This more unique look compared to Oblivion was a result of the team's desires to recreate Morrowind's alien sense of discovery. And, of course, most importantly, they fixed the faces. Kind of. One of Oblivion's most common criticisms was that it was simply too flat, and not just the landscape itself, but the sentiment covered pretty much every aspect of the game. Cyrodiil's foothold in classic European folklore restricted the sense of depth and discovery that impressed fans of Morrowind, and while functional, much of the game's mechanics left a lot to be desired by most people who like to have fun. We see Skyrim rectifying this right off the bat, as every single one of Skyrim's 9 holds is immediately more unique and interesting than Oblivion's 12 regions of grassy plains and dirt roads. While relatively dry and static, the ongoing political turmoil between the holds of Skyrim ties the world's regions together and establishes a very strong sense of variety between them. At least that's the idea. Even ignoring how the game handles its world politics with all the depth and complexity of a Saturday morning cartoon, it's sort of easy to forget anything is even happening besides the whole dragon mess. If Whiterun holds neutrality between the Stormcloaks and Imperials makes it a constant object of competition between the two factions, how come we never actually see any conflict happening until the Stormcloaks just straight up raid the entire city as part of a quest? Both sides up to that point have spent all their time sitting on their asses flicking playing cards into their helmets and talking about how much they
hate those filthy Outlanders.
The Civil War storyline is dry enough to break your teeth on, and it'll probably just end up going with whichever side has the coolest outfits anyway. That's not to say the game's world design isn't gorgeous though, because it is, and if you don't think so, then you're stupid and I hate you. Despite being so desaturated and gloomy looking that I have a color preset on my TV dedicated to turning the saturation up to 100 for this game specifically, the world itself has some of the most trouser-tighteningly gorgeous set pieces in the series. The first time I played this, I jizzed non-stop for the entirety of my first playthrough. I'm not even joking. The graphics have somehow managed to age like milk in only 6 years though. Skyrim is a strong contender for my official Most Hideous Shadows in any game ever award, and while drastically improved from previous iterations of the franchise, the wonky, stupid-looking animations make me cry every time I see that weird-ass bow-legged jump that your character does. But aesthetically, the game clearly outshines Oblivion's fairly generic design, and in my opinion even surpasses Morrowind's world in some ways. Bethesda pretty much nailed the Arctic tundra setting that makes up the land of Skyrim, despite it being more or less unexplored in the medium of gaming. Apart from just being really cool and pretty, it gives you something nice to look at when you're delving into crypts to retrieve family heirlooms, and oh boy, I almost forgot this was a Bethesda game. Exploring the world of Tamriel has never felt quite this fulfilling before. You can't walk 10 feet without running into a randomly generated bandit camp or haunted crypt. They're all nearly identical and completely uninspired, but it's so much fun watching the minimap icons turn white that you barely even notice. How are the dungeons? Well, they're pretty dungeony if you're into that sort of thing. Which I know you are. That's why you're trapped here, like the rest of us. And since you are, you're probably aware of how the biggest string to Skyrim's enchanted elven bow of fish slapping is how easy to play it is. It seems like everywhere you go, there's something stimulating to do, and while that something can often be pretty dull, there's just enough flash in the design to make it feel like anything other than simply pissing away time. Even I found myself falling into the comfortable, mindless pattern, becoming a slave to the level up sound. Every little thing you do brings you a step closer to a minuscule stat upgrade and useless and ultimately inconsequential perk, like getting 10% better at spitting watermelon seeds or getting a small chance to find extra golden chests somehow. Bethesda! If you're running short on perk ideas, there's plenty of people that can help you with that. There are countless modders out there working to make your upgrade system less terrible. I'm sure they'd be happy to help you in that department. Todd, email me. I can be your #1 perk coming up with person. How about an upgrade that lets you rip your enemies' faces off? Or one that lets you shoot laser beams out of your sword when you have full health, like in The Legend of Zelda? I'm making a list. Just tell me if you want it shared with you in Google Docs. We can work something out. We all like to make jokes and have fun, but it should be said that Skyrim handles its RPG mechanics with much more proficiency than any one of the countless bland tacked on upgrade systems that I resent it for inspiring. Whereas in games like Watch Dogs and Shadow Warrior, where the difference between having none of the upgrades and having all of them is the ability to wiggle your ears and maybe an extra ammo pouch if you're lucky, Skyrim sits on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I tried to play through as a stealthy one-handed backstabber, and by level 6 I was effortlessly crouch walking up to anyone I wanted dead and just destroying most enemies in one blow, and this was on expert difficulty. After getting only 2 perks in the sneak skill, I was pretty much undetectable short of sprinting everywhere and clanging metal armor while loudly voicing my opinions on how Ocarina of Time doesn't hold up very well. Sure, you feel like a badass, but it doesn't feel earned. In Deus Ex, you start out the game aiming like you have a washing machine full of venomous spiders taped to your elbow. But as you progress and gain skill both as a player and a character, your aim steadily improves to the point where you can channel your willpower into the bullets you fire and make them wash the dishes for you. I feel like Bethesda looked at this, compared it to Oblivion's progression system, and thought, we could do that too. But being able to put Big Boss to shame after an hour of grinding does not feel earned. It has to be mentioned just how badly Skyrim handles its sense of progression, not just in its mechanics, but in just about every aspect you can name. No matter how many heroic deeds you accomplish, no matter how many characters you encounter in the main quest to tell you how famous you are, you always just feel like some random douche in Daedric armor, upturning burial urns for loose change, and being an errand boy for that one guy that runs a clothing store down the road. Sure, there's plenty of cool guy stuff to do, like solving murder mysteries and breaking up with your one-night stand Haggraven fiance, but nothing is tied to your level. You aren't treated any differently between level 1 and level 250. And is getting to level 250 fun? Okay, now that we're in the gameplay section of the video, we need a real talk. The Elder Scrolls series and the blocking mechanic need to just fuck already. The sexual tension grows thicker with each new installment, and it becomes ever more apparent each time a new game comes out that they have absolutely no idea how to deal with it. In Arena and Daggerfall, blocking was negligible. In Morrowind, the blocking steered itself and wasn't necessary because of the whiffing mechanics. In Oblivion, you were pretty much forced to block blows unless you just really liked the game over music. In Skyrim, blocking is literally useless. No matter which way you play it, you can tank blows like Nathan Drake on bath salts, and health regeneration combined with a constant surplus of healing potions means that you can pretty much wail away enemies with no worries. And then there's the difficulty. Any sense of involvement given off by Skyrim's combat is merely an illusion. It's something like even less And here we are, approximately 11,612 words into the series. Over 30 pages of shallow, cynical analysis veiled in a thin air of smugness and jaded disillusionment with a franchise I've come to hate just as much as I love. I've considered meeting a quota for this video, to hit that golden ratio of positive and negative remarks that make sure the subreddits are happy, but it's all inconsequential at this point. The one point that took 11,000 words to reach. 11,000 words building up to the point where the title starts to make sense. The Elder Scrolls problem. Skyrim is not a good game. Unique aesthetic trappings and flashy menu graphics can only hold your attention for so long before you begin to notice the cracks in the foundation. The combat is overly simplified and lacks strategy, which you begin to notice once you stop being impressed by the weighty animations. The storyline is garbage, which you begin to notice once you start playing the game. The exploration is dull and pointless, which you begin to notice once you loot your 100th burial urn. None of the quests are fun, which you begin to notice when you start to wonder why you keep coming back to these games. And after that, you start to wonder if the Elder Scrolls series has gotten worse over the years, and you go back to Oblivion. The combat isn't fun, the quest can only hold your attention for so long, it's ugly as sin, most of the world is randomly generated, the leveling system makes you sad. Then, you start to suspect that Oblivion is when the series started going downhill, so you dig up your old CD-ROM collection and decide to take a trip down memory lane with Morrowind, and then you discover that back when you were 12, the problems with the game were probably obscured by all the dust in your face. You probably don't even own Arena and Daggerfall, and you don't really feel like messing with DOSBox. Why do you keep coming back? Video games disappoint me as a medium. We're able to pull $85 million in 4 years into a game as ambitious as this, to have 90 talented developers make this gorgeous world seemingly brimming with personality and mystery, beckoning you to explore every corner of the game for content that isn't there, or isn't worth exploring for. And we buy it, and we play it, and we're happy with it. 9.5 out of 10, IGN. 9 out of 10, GameSpot. 94% PC Gamer, 100 Giant Bomb, 100 GameSpy.
Bethesda has created the penultimate Western RPG.
Few games ever made can inspire such a powerful desire to explore.
Not only is it one of the best RPGs of the year, it's also one of the best games, period.
All these overblown ratings and canned, age-old quotes play it safe in a way that completely ignores Skyrim's biggest problem. It's not good. It really isn't. Neither is Oblivion. Neither is Morrowind. Neither are Daggerfall and Arena. Redguard isn't good either. Battlespire definitely isn't. The Elder Scrolls Online is an MMO, so not being good is a given. So why are we seeing 9s and 10s across the board? How was Skyrim able to irreversibly impact the entire gaming industry? Why is it still talked about? Because we're willing to look past the glaring flaws because it has that certain charm that no other game has. Because IGN told us so. Because we're 12 years old and we don't know any better. Because we just got home from work and we just feel like relaxing. Because we like modding it. Because it's our favorite game. Because it's the Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is a testament to the incredible potential for the medium of video games. You never hear people like me shit-talking The Godfather's character writing, or saying that Pulp Fiction is only so critically acclaimed because it looks pretty. That's because, in the medium of film, everyone's seen everything, and they're not going to be impressed by having keys jingle in their face. But gaming is a completely different animal. For some, the very prospect of a sprawling world full of countless possibilities and things to do completely excuses the fact that the game as a whole sucks. For most, it doesn't matter that the plot is flimsy as all hell or that there's no depth in the mechanics. As long as those mechanics are there to hold up the experience, it can be forgiven as long as this type of thing gets to exist. As long as this game gets to be regarded as one of the best games of all time. And that is beautiful. I don't like Skyrim. I don't think Skyrim deserves a 10 out of 10 score. I don't think it deserves a 9, or a 7, or even a 5. A game that has more cons than pros does not deserve to be rated as anything above average. But I still see what all of you see in it. I remember renting Skyrim in November of 2011, taking it home and putting it into PlayStation 3, and completely losing myself in the world. I remember doing all the guild quests, unlocking all the words of power, climbing High Hrothgar to speak with the Greybeards. I remember Skyrim just like all of you. It's special to me, just like every other game in the series is. I don't harbor much true hatred for the Elder Scrolls. It never feels insincere. You always get the feeling that the developers really do care about these games. Find your own path and follow it wherever it may lead you. Thank you for joining us on this adventure. We hope your time with the game is as rewarding as ours has been. That's from the first page of the Oblivion instruction manual. I remember reading this on the toilet when I was 10 years old. Despite all the crap these games are known for, what Bethesda's accomplished with this series is nothing short of amazing. They've created several gigantic, unforgettable games that would each play a major part in molding how we think of video games and what we look for in RPGs. The Elder Scrolls is undeniably one of the most influential game series of all time. It is without a doubt one of, if not the most important role-playing series of all time. And that's all that really matters in the end, isn't it?